Welcome to the Insights to Communicate podcast with Adam Probalski, where communications, research, and strategy come together.
Welcome to the podcast, Jordan Eldridge. Thanks a ton for being here. Jordan is principal founder, Eldridge Political Partners. Been involved in politics for better part of a decade and a half, 17 years. Worked on local campaigns, involved in local party politics. Has a really cool job. I'll give a little hint into presidential appointee. And held some local government positions. Welcome, Jordan. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for having me, Adam.
I'm kind of fascinated by a couple parts of your background, but I like to give you the chance to define yourself, I guess. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are, a little bit about your story?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, Adam. It's truly an honor to be here. I have been in the political arena since I was elected and sworn in as De Anza College's student trustee, Foothill De Anza Community College District Board of Trustees. That was in June of 2007. I have been fascinated with the political process, public service, and public policy ever since middle school. But it wasn't until working on then Foothill De Anza trustee Paul Fong's successful election to the California State Assembly when I became actively involved in local and state politics. I have subsequently worked on dozens of campaigns. I worked for 2 California State Assembly members and a state representative in Massachusetts. I worked in local and regional government relations for the Santa Clara Valley Water District, worked for a labor union as an organizer, and then also have represented the Santa Clara County Democratic Party at the California Democratic Party level since 2009. I was also elected to serve on the governing board of the Rancho Rinconada Recreation and Park District from 2010 to 2013, and then also from 2019 to 2020. So I have a little bit of experience being in an elected office. I have a master's degree in public administration from Northeastern University in Boston. And I decided to open up my own political consulting firm in December 2018, mainly focusing on campaign finance, campaign management, and general political consulting.
So your story is not totally unique to people in kind of this realm.
Yeah.
But I think it's super interesting, the idea that you just kind of get thrust into it and somehow then you're all of a sudden going from campaign to campaign and getting elected and working for electeds. Give a sense to people of how that process works. Like, how does it that you end a campaign, which means like it's done and there's no more paycheck and there's no more work to do necessarily, and then you somehow get the next one? How does that happen? Is it because you're a Nepo baby? Is it because you have relationships? Is it because you apply for a job that's on Indeed? How does that process work of going to the next gig or the next job?
Yeah, well, it wasn't until maybe primary season of 2018 where I really got thrust into campaign management, and really focusing on getting people elected to office. In 2018, in the primary, I was the campaign manager for a very critical election here in San Jose. It was the No on B, Yes on C campaign. And basically, there were a couple billionaire developers that were trying to come into the city of San Jose, redefine the city's general plan to build housing, urban sprawl, to build housing outside of the city boundaries. We have what is called Coyote Valley, which is the last remaining thoroughfare way for wildlife to get through the valley. And so, the other side spent about $6 million to pass the Measure B, and we had less than $100,000. And due to our robust field program, we were able to beat back the measure. So Noam BSonC won that race. And ever since then, people have been uh, seeking me out to help with their campaigns. So really, it starts with taking the opportunity. Opportunities are out there. There is uh, a severe shortage of campaign workers throughout the country. And so there's always campaigns that are looking for volunteers or even paid staff. So my suggestion would be to put yourself out there, join a campaign, and do a lot of reading. I've done a lot of reading of different campaign books and materials just to get a better idea of how other folks have put their campaign strategies together. But it's been interesting seeing the way that I've been able to get business, whether that's through campaign finances or managing on campaigns. It has been 100% referral, and so it's when you win campaigns, people take notice.
Right. That's, I think, again, not so different than a lot of people's experience, but it's hard for, I think, some people who aren't in the business to kind of understand how does that work? How does someone actually get the next set of business? And you're right. It's
Right.
kind of relationships and referrals. So keeping with that theme of development, which you just kind of talked about was kind of your kickoff into this kind of business. Can we talk about California Forever? Is that a subject you can dive into? Because I know you're involved in, well, I think you're involved in opposing it, right?
Yeah. So our firm is actually the treasurer for the No on California Forever.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
And thematically, is it you're a part of it because you do treasury work and it's just a natural, or is it because there's some overarching belief system that you work with that says we want to protect open space, or just we don't like billionaires, or is there some other motivation there?
Well, I was able to get connected with the campaign based on them needing a treasurer. So my involvement in that campaign is pretty limited.
Okay.
I do support their position to No on California Forever, mainly because of environmental concerns and urban sprawl concerns. When you build a new city, there's a lot that goes into it. You have to have the critical infrastructure like sewage and um, it's just it's important to really protect not only open space but urban sprawl. If you do too much urban sprawl at once, it's going to collapse the system.
Okay.
So that's pretty much my view on it. I really struggled with my view on it at first, mainly because in California we desperately need housing. We have a huge housing shortage,
Yeah.
and it's expensive to live here, including myself. Um, and so we desperately need the housing. However, you know, building a completely new city, away from other, current infrastructure, um, is challenging. And so, I wish that there was a better way to um, to handle this issue.
Sure. Okay, so you've got a super interesting job, one of your positions. You are on the U.S. Selective Service System Board. You're a board member, and you can correct me how
Mhm.
I'm saying that. But I remember as a kid, and I'm a little bit older than you. I had to register with Selective Service when I turned 18, which I think is, if I'm wrong, tell me, the agency that is in charge of a draft, if there ever is a
Right.
draft. I don't know if kids today actually register. I don't know what that process would look like. God forbid we needed to have one. But like, did you even know about it before you were on the U.S. Selective Service? And did you like pursue it, or did they pursue you? How did that come about? Because you are a presidential appointee,
Mm-hmm.
I think recommended by the governor and then appointed by, I assume, must have been Obama. But tell me how that happened and how cool of a job that is. Do you get to go to DC, or what's that all work? How does that work?
No, I'm glad that you asked. The Selective Service System is an independent agency in the U.S. government that maintains a database of registered U.S. citizens and other U.S. citizens that are potentially able to be drafted if that was to happen. Um, the U.S. Selective Service Local Board, which is I'm a part of, it's a group of citizen volunteers, and their mission basically during a military draft would be to decide who among the registrants in the community would receive deferments or postponements or exemptions from military service based on their individual circumstances or beliefs. Um, Basically, I saw that some other friends of mine had done it, and so I thought that it was a cool idea. So I decided to sign up. The Selective Service System, they're constantly seeking applicants to serve as board members. There are thousands of boards throughout the country.
Okay.
And while there are no plans at this time for a draft, because um, it has to go through Congress and the president, and to sign into law to create the draft again. It is important that the Selective Service System is ready to operate should it become necessary.
Right.
And so that's basically the the gist. You can apply on the Selective Service System website. Then the director of the Selective Service System will seek appointment from your state's governor,
Okay.
and then it's ratified by the President of the United States. And there are thousands of positions available. So if you're interested in becoming a Selective Service System board member,
Right.
definitely please apply.
Very cool. But I mean, I guess so then the bottom line is, what was your motivation? Like, was it like, oh, I just collect a cool, and which is fine, like collect a cool position, or like, did you feel like it's a calling, is something that's important, if it ever happened, or what's the real motivation behind that?
Well, yeah, I think there is a mixture of all of that. I think it is really cool that I am a member of the Selective Service System local board here in Santa Clara County. Um, I would say yes. I mean, it is pretty cool to be appointed by the governor of California and also, um, appointed by the president of the United States. But I think I wanted to get involved. I wanted to, when I first joined it, I wanted to get involved in as many things as I could. And being, part of the Selective Service System, if there is ever a national emergency and the draft is reinstated, I'm going to be called up. I'm basically in the reserves. I'm going to be called up, to handle a lot of, to make sure that, um, you know, people are being heard fairly of their deferments and postponements or exemptions from military service.
That's awesome. I have a lot of background in a lot of different policy areas, from education to waste management to finance and planning commission, all these different cool things that I've done. And so it seems like there's great value in that. Like, you've got that community college experience, you've got the Parks District experience, you've got everything on selective service, local measures. Like, it's pretty cool to have that broad understanding. It really makes you, I think, very valuable to clients. that you've got that big picture understanding of how government and politics works and all those different policy areas.
Yeah.
So that's very cool.
Yeah.
So in your career, is there like one mentor, one boss, one person, it could be a family member, who like you have to give a shout out to, who they were like a big part of making you who you are today?
Absolutely. I would say two people.
Okay.
One, I just recently lost my grandmother. However, she was a big part of supporting me and the clients that I worked for. She would be my number one, uh, you know, supporter and would go above and beyond to go to political events with me, and she would donate support candidates that I was managing their campaigns. Um, but I would say there are many individuals who have given me mentorship and have helped me become successful in my work. However, I think I would like to talk about one individual that has been the most influential and closest to me during my short career, and that is the Honorable Sally Lieber. Sally Lieber is the current chair of the California State Board of Equalization, and she's a former state assembly member and mayor of Mountain View, California. I met Assemblywoman Lieber shortly after she was turned out of office in December 2008. Um, I had a close friend who committed suicide on the Caltrain tracks on New Year's Eve 2008. And at this time, there was a serious epidemic of train related accidents and suicides on the tracks. So, like, I posted about my friend's death on social media maybe a day or two later, and Assemblywoman Lieber reached out to me and told me that she wanted to work with me to get the Caltrain board to implement a safety task force to complete what has turned out to be one of the most intensive efforts to prevent suicides and accidents in the railroad's history. And working with the Assemblywoman on this project really solidified our close friendship. And I have been working very closely with her ever since. I really could talk for hours about the great work that Assemblywoman Lieber has done over the years.
Wow.
But the impact she's had on me has been pretty significant.
That's really special. I mean, obviously it's rough how you kind of got to meet her, but kind of amazing that you fostered that kind of relationship from that.
Yeah, I really feel like um, a lot of people in politics forget the great work that politicians do.
Right.
Um, for example, when people think of politics, they think the worst, but I really have done a great job surrounding myself with mentors and people in politics and campaigns that I worked for have been people who have been really sincere about the work that they want to do for the community. And Sally Lieber has, you know, she's done a lot of work um, that I feel like should get more recognition for. Um, but she is currently running for the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, and so we're helping work on that campaign as well.
Oh, cool.
But yeah,
It's really special. The relationships that we can form. I think you said it well. Like, forget there's like good people doing good things involved. We kind of talk about a lot of the polarization and negativity. So kind of nice to hear a positive story. So I'm always fascinated by how people organize their lives, their businesses. Can you share the tools you use to organize your business Are you a pad and paper kind of guy, or a Google Docs kind of person, or do you have some specialized software? How do you communicate with clients and in your team? Is it Slack? Is it Zoom? How do you organize things to be most productive?
Yeah, I am constantly looking for ways to improve our systems and processes.
Okay.
We use Google Calendar, which integrates with our email platform. We use Google Docs. Um, Google Docs is where we pretty much save a lot of our records. As you may know, doing campaign finance, it's important, that we maintain meticulous documents and records. So we use Google Calendar. We use Google Drive. We also use Carbon. It's a project management tool for accountants
Oh,
called Carbon, Karbon,
okay.
and that has helped us stay on track, not only for the accounting side of our business, but also just making sure that tasks that are coming in are being dealt with on time. And we also use Netfile, which is a software that political treasurers use to prepare and file campaign financial statements. Um, in terms of communicating, we are a pretty small firm of 5 dedicated individuals. And so our communication is not particularly complicated. We communicate largely through email, phone calls, FaceTime, Zoom, and through our Carbon project management system. So, um, yeah,
Very cool. It's just like always interesting to hear how people do it.
I'm constantly looking for ways to improve.
Yeah, as am I.
So any suggestions would be great.
We're always doing the same, and trying to kind of limit the exposure to more technology and just kind of limit it to the things that work best, because it's super easy to have that creep happen where you bring in another tool and another tool and another tool, and then it's like, where are we living? We're living
Right.
in tech places. Okay, and then tell me about news. Like, you're a California guy or a Santa Clara County guy. You probably do work throughout the state and other places, perhaps. But what's your go-to when it comes to in the morning? What do you have to read?
Yeah, so I am subscribed to several different news outlets. We check, my team and we check our local news, which is Mercury News. We also really enjoy our local nonprofit independent news, which is San Jose Spotlight.
Yeah,
We also subscribe to the Capital Morning Report, the Sacramento Bee, LA Times, and the San Francisco Chronicle, some of the major news outlets that, um, you know, do a lot of the major political stories and, um, what's happening on the ground in any given uh, area in California.
that's great. That definitely provides a picture to people outside of California of how you kind of keep in touch. You mentioned kind of like an insider one, Capital Morning Report, that a lot of people don't know about,
Right.
but it's a great tool for finding out like events, what's really happening, fundraisers,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of announcements in there that you wouldn't see published even in Politico or some other places that claim to really cover California politics. A lot of that stuff is missed if you don't get the Capital Morning Report.
Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap, mantra, your words to live by, like, what sings through your head throughout the day to kind of drive you, or words of wisdom for others.
Yeah, I would say that my biggest mantra would be to be comfortable making mistakes.
That's, I think, really important for people. I mean, especially young people today. They have a big challenge with, what's imposter syndrome, that you hear all the time,
Yeah.
and so the idea that people who come before them, people who are a little more experienced than them, don't ever make mistakes is BS.
Right.
I mean, we all make mistakes. We all have big, meaty mistakes that we can, point to. So I think that's fantastic.
For the longest time, I would see a mistake that I made and I would stress about it to the point where I wouldn't sleep at night. And so it's really important that when mistakes occur, that you own up to them and you learn from your mistakes, and move forward. That's the key. One example that I have, I there was a time where I took over the finances for a Democratic women's club here in Silicon Valley. And I noticed that the club was filing financial reports with the wrong jurisdiction.
Oh,
And so I updated paperwork to file with the county instead of the state, which is what should have done. However, I missed a little line in the rules that said that I was supposed to continue cross filing with the state for the remainder of the year.
oh,
And once I learned of my failure, we filed the reports. We were fined $5,000. And because it was my fault, I paid the fine out of pocket. So, there are some mistakes that you have to own up to, but feel comfortable putting yourself out there and, learning lessons. There's a campaign that you might not win because you made mistakes. Learn from those mistakes and do better next time.
beautiful.
The campaigns that win are the campaigns that are the most organized.
Beautiful. Great words of advice and self-reflection for sure. I'm really grateful for you for being on the podcast, Jordan, and I hope to keep the conversation going.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
This has been Insights to Communicate with Adam Probalski, president of the woman and Latina-owned market and opinion research firm, Probalski Research.